مساء الخير. مرحبا فيكم في Gallery Ayyam. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight in an exciting discussion with artist Khaled Akil, who has come all the way from Istanbul for this exhibition and this talk hosted here at this very beautiful premises of Ayyam Gallery in Dubai. So thanks to the hosts for putting together this lovely exhibition and for hosting this panel discussion. We'll be speaking for the next hour and I'll be taking questions from you. So please feel free to think of any questions you'd like to pose the artist or in general. I think would be good to hear from you, whether it's about this series of works or works that you see on the screen. I met Khaled 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Khaled was 26 years old, and I was 34.
34.
Yes.
You had the long hair.
And I had long hair. We both had long hair.
Yeah. You had a very nice long hair.
And ever since then, I've had the pleasure and the honor of getting to know Khaled closely in my visits to Istanbul once or twice a year. And I must say that it's so refreshing to see these works further than 2 meters away. That I'm so used to seeing the works in his apartment, and they're usually so close that you don't get to admire them. Because as you know, many paintings, they really need space to breathe and space to, show off their colors. And this is something that I finally got to see today. And I'll tell you something about Khaled. Khaled actually studied law. In
Beirut.
In Beirut.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here in an art exhibition?
I don't know. I have no idea how this happened, but it just happened. Like, I think you just follow what you want, what you love, and you end up doing it. I think that's how we end up here.
So Khaled was born in Aleppo in 1986.
1986, yeah.
And he is the son of a prominent artist and the grandson of an artist as well, different mediums. He's very much a self-taught artist, but I feel like Khaled, much of this self-taught nature of your work has also come to you by osmosis through your family. And I would love to explore this in the talk today. The idea that, yes, there can be self-taught artists like yourself and many others we know from Syria and elsewhere, but you grew up in an environment that's very much nurturing and welcoming of different types of art. Yeah. This is your first painting and it's from 1990. How old were you?
Probably 3-4 years old. Around this age. Yeah, the story behind that is like my dad is an artist, as Akil, and he's my idol. I mean, he's been doing this forever. And when I was a kid, I mean, his paintings, I was already around paints and pigments and all of that. And as you say, like, yes, self-taught is something, but also we are the products of our environment, and being around this environment definitely helped my consciousness to develop in a certain way. About this painting, when I was a kid, I wanted to paint, and I told my dad, okay, because I was like playing around his paintings, he was letting me like just mess. He turned the canvas behind and I used to mess. So if you have like my dad's early works, if you flip the canvas, you can see my doodles behind. He used to let me do that. And at this age, one time I was like, okay, I want to make a painting. So I painted this. And that was the only one I did back then, because after I finished this one, I told him, like, I don't want to paint anymore because everyone will say your dad looks better than you. And he's the reason why I didn't paint in the first place. Like, he's the reason he's inspired me, but he was the main reason why I didn't take the painting as a medium of art in my art curiosity later on. And I chose photography. Because for me, he was like better than me, so I don't want to do anything that less than him. It's a kid ego.
We'll talk, Khaled, about your your extended family, maybe your grandfather in a few minutes. But I want to talk about your household. Can you describe to us your home in Aleppo, the environment you grew up in? Tell us about, who was in the house? How many siblings are you? Tell us about Khaled.
Sure. We are four. Like me, I have my sister Umayya, which she studied also art. She's also a very talented artist. Mom and dad, and we live in the same building. So the next door is my grandparents from mom's side. So I had like two parents. I had my mom and dad and grandpa, which later we will talk about. He's a photographer himself. He's a judge, but he has great passion for photography, and he was the reason why I later started photography. The house is a playground. It's like dad creating all the time, and mom also is a creative person in her own way. And I was just playing around, as you see in these pictures. Like I'm just painting on my dad's works, and my dad is always creating, whether he's painting or he redecorates the house a million times a year. He just like play around. So it was a very creative environment in the house.
Did you have artists come and visit you at home? Do you remember anyone?
Yeah, his friends. He has lots of friends visiting. The art discussions happening there. All these long nights that is boring for our kids. Like they go deep in philosophy and talk about things, and it's just like I just want to go sleep, But you have to finish your dinner, so. Yeah, that was a very. So I had this environment, the art side from my dad, and I had the other house, if you can imagine the building, on the next door, next side of the apartment, the building. There's my grandpa's side, which is like all different kind of creation. You want to go to grandpa? This is my dad. Also, like since we're still talking about my dad, this is his works. This is him in the studio.
And the studio was at home?
Yeah, the studio is in. He had a gallery, a workshop, and a gallery before, but after the war, we closed that, obviously, and he moved to the apartment, to the house, and he has a big studio in the house, which he never leaves the studio. He's just constantly working there. Yeah, and he's there now.
Sorry, this is a personal question, Khaled, but how does your family feel about your first solo exhibition? Am I right in the Arab world?
Yes. They're very happy. I mean, I'm so happy that my dad he never planned for his son to be an artist. He's very like free. He's like, do whatever you want,
I feel like your father did plan on you being an artist when you're 4 years old.
Ah, right, yeah.
So maybe you didn't know that.
Yeah.
So Khaled, I actually want to go back to your family. Your grandfather was one of the most prominent figures in Syria pre-independence, 1930s to 1950s. You said he was a judge. He was a political man, but he also was a photographer. So can you tell us a little bit about Saad Zaghloul al-Kawakibi, who he was, what did he photograph, and do you remember meeting him?
Of course. I grew up. When he passed away, I was here. Unfortunately, I couldn't see him because of the war. But when I left Syria, he was like I was 28 years old. So
I was here, as in I was in Istanbul when you said.
Sorry, Istanbul. Okay. Yeah. Here in like outside of Syria. Yeah. He's a grandson of Abdurrahman Kawakibi. Abdurrahman Kawakibi is a political philosopher, and he's considered like an icon in the Arab Renaissance. He's contemporary of Muhammad Abdo and Jamal Din Afghani.
This is the turn of the century, about 1900, when the Arab intellectuals were calling for greater independence from the Ottoman Empire. So he was one of the most prominent figures in those days.
It's late 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. He actually, Abdurrahman Kawakibi, had the first newspaper in Syria, and he managed to get that because of the family connection, because they were the head of the Prophet's family in the cities. So we were senators in the Ottoman Empire. So he had a direct relationship with the Sultan and the Ottoman Empire, and that's how he managed to get permission. But the long story goes that, again, he was against the Ottoman Empire, and he ended up assassinated by Abdul Hamid, and he's considered like a political philosopher of his time. And Grandpa, he's a judge, he's a historian, he was the head of Supreme Court. So look at this picture, I miss him a lot. Yeah, he's a very interesting man. Like,
so he was an author, and the book he's holding in his hand is a biography that he's written of his own grandfather.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you have a lot of the material of your grandfather, your family's archives, photography. That's also part of what you have your hands on. So you have access to these incredible pictures, and I'm not sure the people in the back if you can actually see the details, but Khaled, can you describe to us these three photos just before you speak about them, and then tell us about the content.
So Grandpa, he had a camera since he was 16 years old, and he was born in 1924, so that was really a long time ago. And he had the chance to photograph everything in Aleppo city. And he captured really some rare moments in the city. For example, that slide on the right is when Turkey split part of Syria, Iskenderun, and people in Aleppo, they gathered in an area called Aziziyeh, and they demonstrate against that.
Against Turkey taking over part of Syria.
Yeah, and that's where you see it's written in French, Syria for Syrians, etc. But what's important in this picture, that on the right, the far right, you see the cross, you see all religions together with the star.
There's the Star of David.
Yes.
There's the cross, and there's the crescent.
The crescent,
representing the three Abrahamic faiths.
Yes. And
I'm not sure if you can see it. It's here on the extreme right.
And this picture is in 1932. I think it's a very important picture. The ones on the left is when Syria first got the independence and got the authorities from the French. And you can see Ibrahim Hanano is famous, and the first president celebrating the first independent day of Syria in Aleppo. Down is his school. Like, he took his camera to his school and he just shot a...
He snuck the camera into his classroom.
Yeah, but everyone was happy because back then, like, camera, like, that's like very advanced thing. It's like taking a VR now probably to a school.
Khaled, as someone who's interested in archiving and documentation, how many photos are there and who owns them?
I own them, and luckily the family, they gave me the permission to say, you've been doing that for a while, so you take care of that. And I can say thousands of pictures, because the story didn't stop here. I mean, he was taking pictures since he was a kid, and then 60s, 50s, up until he died. So we have boxes and boxes of pictures. Not only his pictures, also the family, like his dad, Fadl Kawakbi. Also, he had a camera, so I have pictures from 18th century, and I have pictures like goes back to Abdurrahman al-Kawakbi. So hopefully one day we'll get to preserve them in the right way, and put them out for the world.
Sorry, I don't mean to ask another question about this, but are they digitized or are they in printed form?
Unfortunately, not digitized. Printed form.
Yeah, okay.
And that's my like an anxiety all the time. It's like, if anything happened, let's say earthquake or anything happened, it's inshallah.
Okay. So let's go back to you and to art, Khaled.
This is with my grandpa. This is when I started doing photography.
So what's going on in these photographs?
These photographs is my early, so my grandpa, he gave me my first camera. I was like 16 years old. It was Zenith camera, and that's how I learned photography, was like through film cameras and negative. And then he got a digital camera, which was it's like, let's try the digital camera. And here, in this photograph, it's me and him. If you see 4 hands, it's like his hands behind me.
This is your grandfather?
Yeah, it's like his hands behind me. I was like experimenting, and suddenly I saw him behind me, and he was doing this behind, and I love this picture. It's like and then I manipulated that. Of course, I took it to the computer and just added some colors.
So you were 9 years old here?
No, 2005. I was more than 9. I think I was I was like more than
2000.
9.
Oh, you're born 86. Yeah. So okay, teenager. Sorry,
Yeah.
I can't do maths as you can tell. Okay. So I think the photo that we just saw was the beginning of your conceptual photography.
Exactly, yeah.
And so clearly, your grandfather's influence, of course your father's influence, leading us to things like this. What are you photographing here exactly? These pictures going back to what, 2008 or 11?
Yeah, 2011, yeah. Well, this is the curiosity from doing the photography and also from my dad. We go back to my dad here also, and his relationship with texture and his curiosity in understanding himself. And I was not happy with my society in Syria. Not happy in the meaning that I could feel that there's something wrong is happening there. Like any society, I mean, I could feel that there's something wrong. But I can't tap on it. So my curiosity to understand how to exist with this, coexist with this society, led me to experiment, and photography was my medium. But also I had the ability to manipulate pictures. So again, my grandpa comes from like a very historical family, so he was obsessed with antiquities. So he was collecting everything. And this mortar shell is when Ibrahim Hanani was fighting the French.
Who was one of the founding fathers of Syria.
Of the Syrian Revolution.
Yeah.
And that mortar shell is where the French, they were bombing Syria and bombing Aleppo. And my grandpa, he collected that. So I just put that, and I put a fork and knife and a spoon, and I guess I wanted to say that it's part of our everyday life, and it's never changed.
You know, when I look at this, I'm intrigued because you're someone who didn't study art. You're someone who studied law.
Yeah.
And so for someone to have studied law, to go into conceptual photography, it's sort of several layers sort of beyond the basics of art. You know, you're not photographing. Aleppo is one of the most beautiful cities in the world with, you know, ancient sites. And so if it was me, I would have just taken pictures of the citadel and the markets.
Yeah,
but then you went into forks and knives and explosive ordnance. So
I did street photography, but that was my passion here. I went like I just wanted to understand what the hell is this? Like, how can I live in a society where itself is clashing by itself, which at the end of the day, the result was the conflict we have.
Which we definitely will come and talk about, the multiple conflicts, I think, rather than just one conflict.
Exactly.
I want to go back, the next picture is going to bring us back to the photographs that you took earlier when you were a kid of the human body. The silhouette of the human body. I'm sorry, but is this when the civil war started? Before. I was going to say 2010. It was before, and so it kind of is scary, and it kind of is it's reminiscent of what happened several years into the war, and it's very dark. So where did this come from? It sounds like you come from a very sort of open household, you know, a loving family, you know, guests, parties, discussions. So where did this darkness come from?
Yeah, from the outside. Like, indeed, like I can't ask for a better family. I mean, we have very loving environment, everything. Like, I'm very lucky to be in this family and to experience both sides, like grandpa's family. But the outside world has always felt weird for me. And I wanted to understand the relationship between religion, culture, norms, and how things are mixing together. Yeah, and I was working on this series before the conflict breakout in Syria, but I showed it in May 2011 in a solo show in Aleppo, which was like just 2 months after the war breakout or the conflict there. And it was kind of not predicted, but it's kind of, I felt it like before.
Was that your first exhibition in Aleppo, solo?
No, not first solo, but before that it was in our gallery. So my dad has a gallery, as I said, like a workshop and a gallery. And when there's an openings, like in the office, he had that wall that I can show whatever I want on the wall. So I used to print my pictures.
You had
and hang
perks.
them.
You had certain advantages in your father's gallery.
I had definitely, yeah. So I print my works, and I'm just waiting people if they go to the office to see the works. That was what I was showing before, but the first solo, it was this in this series.
Khaled, this is 2012, 2013, and the war in Syria is already now a year or two. Aleppo, which was untouched for the first few months, now is bearing the brunt of the devastation. I mean, we see you're still in Syria these days. You're taking this photograph.
Yeah.
You haven't left Syria,
No.
and can you tell us about this series? Because again, there's a little bit of the darkness, but I feel here it's very personal.
Yeah, this work in particular, which is Barjeel Art Foundation.
You know, I don't remember acquiring this
I
work.
don't.
When did we buy it? About 10 years ago?
More. Like,
I don't even remember that we acquired it. Yeah.
Cool.
I feel like I need to sort of think about why I acquired this work.
You need to, yeah.
So
I hope you didn't change your mind.
So
yeah. This work in particular, like I was in Aleppo working on that work, so the calligraphy also is mine here. That was an era where I was experimenting with calligraphy.
what does it say?
اقتلوني يا ثقاتي إن في قتلي حياتي. Kill me, my faithful friends, for in my killing me is my salvation. I hope I did that. Yeah. This Mansour al-Hallaj. Mansour al-Hallaj, he said that before they set him on fire and burned his body.
So is this in any way for you a metaphor for Aleppo itself?
Yeah.
With more violence, that the city's salvation will not be extinguished? Is this what you're trying to say?
Yeah, like the harm caused by the one you love, and you accept it, and you say, do it to me. When you do it with love, I'll have my salvation.
Wow.
I was working on that in Aleppo, and in this work in particular, I was locked in the gallery for a few hours because clashes were taking place outside. And it gets scary when you hear people. Like if you hear bullets and fights, it's fine, but when you start hearing voices, that means like really close. So I had to stay in, and I remember back then I was playing Dhafir Youssef, his music.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was working on that, and then this sentence came, and I started doing the calligraphy of it. And this is a picture, like if we're gonna talk about the technique of this is like a picture, and then I print, I manipulate, I do like paintings in it, and then I scan again, and I repeat, similar to this, but digital. And I add the calligraphy, of course, on it. Yeah.
So we saw the human body, we saw the city itself, and now, and I want to also draw your attention to the titles of the works for those who can't read them in the back. The title is Legend of Death.
The Legend of Death, yeah.
I mean, now we're seeing here the
same series.
You know, the same series. This is Legend of Death number 5. And can I ask you, rather than talk about the content, talk about the process? How do you make these works?
First, I capture the picture. I take the picture, and then I print the picture on a paper. And then on this paper, it's open to experiments. Like I put pigments, I put dust, whatever I put, scratch. And then I scan again, and then I print it again. And when I'm satisfied, it's done. But the end result is printed. And then I do the calligraphy separately on a separate page, on a separate place, and then I cut it, and then digitally also I apply it on the thing, on the main picture.
And again, this is still in Aleppo, still in Syria.
Yes. I had a deal with the gallery in Istanbul in 2012 to show this thing before, the series before.
Okay.
And then I go back to Aleppo and the war break out, and then I work on this series there. And then I go back to Istanbul in 2012 because it's already booked, the solo time. And then I showed them this works, and I was like, yeah, let's do this one, and I didn't show the previous one. So this was when I was in Aleppo in 2012. Yeah.
Where were you printing in Aleppo? There's literally a war happening around you.
Yeah, no, I'm not printing it big. You're just printing it small, like A4 or A5, and then you scan it high res, and then you print again and scan. So it's kind of turning the paper to a negative, and scanning it again is like developing again. So it's like a negative, but digital negative.
Okay. And I mean, in a way, you benefited from being in your father's space, in your father's gallery, because all the facilities were available for you. Is this kind of right?
Yeah, definitely. Everything is there, and also he's around me. I mean, he's encouraging me. He's like, yeah, you can do this. Like, do you know you can do that? I mean, he doesn't give you instructions, but he's like, yeah, you just provoke your curiosity, and he let you just do it on your own.
Was your family disappointed that you studied law and became an artist?
No. There's like, dude, like I love my family. It's like just do whatever you want. But they say like finish the law degree because you're already there. Just finish it.
Okay.
And I was like, if I finish it, I do nothing. It's like, yeah, do whatever you want. Just finish it, and we'll support you. And then I finished. It's like, okay, support me. And they were there. They were always there, and they're still there.
I mean, at least you can read your contract with galleries, and you know what your
we
rights
don't
are.
need that.
Yeah. Okay. Not with Ayyam, but with other galleries.
Yeah.
So now we are in Istanbul.
We are in Istanbul. We are in the middle of the war.
I want to know how you got to Istanbul. Why didn't you come to Dubai? Why didn't you go to some others, Cairo? Why Istanbul? And tell us about the journey to Istanbul.
Well, I came to Istanbul before the war in 2012 and 11, and I love Istanbul. Like personally, this city means a lot to me. I could feel this West and East getting together. I can see the duality, like what we have in conflict in us. Like we go with the European lifestyle, whether we like it or not. We speak in English now. Our content in English. We go with Western. But in the same time, we cannot deny our identity also, right? We have a background, we have a religious background, it's cultural background. And I could see that vividly in Istanbul. You can just, Istanbul, you walk in the street, you see a beautiful mosque next to like a very modern, and nature there is beautiful. So I loved the city even before the war. And in one of my travels, I met my previous gallery, and we connected, and they say, let's have a show in 2 years. And then I go back to Syria and the war break out, and the normal thing is like I have to go to my show. So when I went to my show, and it was really successful in the meaning that I met lots of interesting people there, and I felt like I should stay here. I mean, anyways, back home was dangerous.
Yeah.
And the way out of Syria was also not easy. It was dangerous, the way out of Aleppo. I was the last flight from the airport.
From Aleppo airport?
From Aleppo airport. I was the last flight. We were literally like, we had to go down for sniper shooting when leaving. So I was the last. I was very lucky. Like the day we left, the airport was closed.
And I mean, I know this because I've known you for a dozen years, and it wasn't an easy journey for you because you stayed for a long time not even seeing your parents and your family. So maybe we talk about this later. But I want to read to you the titles of some of these works. This is called Dual-Sided Slavery. I mean, obviously, we can understand that there is is this related to trafficking of human beings, maybe?
Yeah, the way women are looked at in the conflict, because they are victims there. I mean, they're definitely, everyone is a victim. I don't like to differentiate between women and men. Everyone, like when they say 10 women and 2 kids died, it's so bad. It's like also men are dying, and also it's bad. I mean, also if you're a man in a war, you're most likely to be killed like on checkpoints more than a woman. But in the same time, women are very like sexualized, and the concept of that becomes like the people who do that, like they become trapped with this idea themselves. That's why I thought like this is a dual-sided slavery, that what they are chasing, they're becoming slaves themselves. And this, of course, because of ISIS. Like back then, ISIS was the peak of that phenomena, and women, they were the main subject there. If you follow the news, what they did was like horrendous. And it touched me a lot in that sense. And I did this series, A Woman Between, to show how women, they are between the conflicts, and they're affected by that.
As far as I can remember, you were intrigued by the human body, by the human form, and it keeps coming up in a lot of your works. And maybe towards the end of this talk, we'll talk about how you sort of diverged from that. This is called Break the Circle.
Break the Circle.
And you bring that, a bit of that bird that you photographed in Syria, and then
she was holding the bird.
Oh wow!
The mother was holding the bird. Yeah, I had this pigeon, which will go back to a different series. I used the same pigeon.
Same pigeon from Syria?
No, not from Syria. Here, I did in Istanbul. This series, I was in Istanbul when I worked on that, and she was actually holding the pigeon, and it was a very nice day to pigeon, and the pigeon stayed with me for a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here again, we look at pigeon.
This
and
is the
human
same
form.
pigeon. Yeah.
They're the same pigeon.
Yeah.
It's quite a prominent pigeon.
Friendly,
Did
yeah.
you give it a name?
No, give it.
Okay.
Well, the story that like I wanted to make something after this Women Between series. I wanted to understand more the Sufism and Rumi and the whole dance of that.
Yeah.
And I met this person, Alper. And
Alper, the Turkish dancer.
The Turkish dancer, performance artist, and he's really talented. Like he took it to a contemporary way. And then we were about to work together. Then I got a friend, very close friend, got killed by ISIS in Syria. And one of the meetings we were supposed to work together, me and him, I was like, I can't really feel it. Like my friend just got killed, and I need time to process that. And he was like, can we pray for her? Can we do something for her? I was like, sure. I was like, and she was a vet. She stayed in Syria to protect dogs. People left their dogs with her.
Wow.
And she stayed to protect them. And I was like, Karina, you have to leave. And she's like, I can't leave dogs behind. And then at some point, she got killed.
Yeah.
So I was like, if we're gonna do something for her, I need an animal. I need a connection with her.
Yeah.
I feel like I need a pigeon. It's like, yeah, we see. I don't know if we can find.
And then the presence of the sort of the pigeon or the dove here, like an animal denoting or peace in a way.
It can be peace, but for me, it's like I want a connection with Karina because she was taking care of animals and all of that connection. So next day he calls me. He's like, guess what? I'm walking in the street and I found this guy feeding pigeons. And I asked him, I need a pigeon, and he gave me this white one. He says, it's very peaceful. You can have it, but you can bring it back in a week. I was like, you serious? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, let me book a studio. Like I used to work with the studio photography. And then I booked the studio, and then we did this shooting together for her. But then I loved the pigeon. I wanted to take advantage of her. And back then I had a model that she was like, we really connected. Like she understand the concept, because not any model can you work with. They need to understand, like they need to feel what you do. So I used the same pigeon with the model.
Okay.
I
also want to draw the attention to the title of the work. This one and the next ones are Requiem for Syria or Ritha Syria. And clearly you've been out of Syria for a number of years now, but Syria is very present in your mind. And there is also an element of Sufism here, Sufi spirituality, and Istanbul, of course, has a lot of that in it, and Aleppo as well, of course. Movement is something else that we notice in this series. This is the series that I want to spend a few minutes. I mean, I had known you for 3-4 years by then, but this is where your name starts showing up in New York Times, in The Guardian, in all the major newspapers around the world, for a very unlikely reason.
Well, thanks to you, because you also shared that and pushed it, and lots of people following you, and you were part of this also.
So, I mean, what are we looking at here? Because I'm kind of confused. Can you tell us what's happening here?
That was a hard day. I was having like a really hard day, and then I went back home and I opened the laptop, just watching, just scrolling on Facebook, and all what I see is Pokemon Go, the game, and like war. Pokemon Go and war. I got really frustrated, and I was like having a bad time back then. So I just sit and I just cut the Pokemon characters from the pictures, and I got pictures from AFP, and I did that like in a couple of hours, like 4 or 5 hours. And I remember I sent it to you, and I shared it online, and you shared it. And I wake up next morning and it went viral. Literally, it went viral. Like every news media in the world was contacting me, and then Vice, they contacted me to feature it, and then Jazeera, and then it goes on like that. These are pictures from Aleppo, all of them, except that one. I think it's like some fundamentalists from other city.
So you chose characters from Pokemon, which is a very popular Japanese sort of...
which I had no idea who are these characters, by the way. It was complete, like, just impulsive, like, action. Like, I was just sitting and feeling, like, really bad, like, what the hell? Like, people... And I was like, how is it, like, the only thing in my mind, like, how is it to hunt a Pokemon in Syria? How the map would look like there? Because I could see people, it was very popular.
It was, I mean, some of the people here wouldn't remember Pokemon, but Pokemon Go, right?
Pokemon Go, the
Pokemon
game.
Go was a game that, that it was viral all over the world,
yeah.
and people, you were using their phones to find the Pokemon.
In the street, they go like stop and try to find it somewhere.
So here, I mean, there is a method to the madness, because I see the lobster is near the water, and the puppy is near the dog, the children. So there's some kind of logic to this. But what did it mean to you that you're finding the Pokemon or finding this character in Aleppo and in Syria?
The irony of what was happening, the irony that like people are dying somewhere and other people are busy doing somewhere else. The same way we were doing that. I mean, where Rwanda or Africa was people being killed, I bet you we were just on barbecue or beaches. Yeah. So. Or Vietnam, and it's no blame to anyone, like this is how human nature. Yeah. But this is the irony of human nature, that while we're sitting in this very gallery having this very discussions, how many people being killed and how many people being tortured, and still you have to live with that, and still you have to be okay with that, and still you have to move on. I mean,
no, but in this case, it was literally your home city being destroyed.
Yeah, to see your home city, the streets you grew up in, it's a different game.
Khaled, I want to move on to another series that I remember when I came to your home in Istanbul. I was really surprised because it was a bit of a jump from what I was used to.
Yeah.
And I want to understand, because this looks like different than your style of work.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, here I start experimenting with my consciousness, and I experience different state of consciousness,
This is some kind of metaphor for experimenting with the different things, basically.
Yeah, of course, with plant medicine, let's say, altering my consciousness, and with plant medicine, and I could see different reality, and I could see that I'm different than the person I am, and that's here you see explosion in colors. It gets very psychedelic after this. After this era, I guess everything gets very psychedelic.
I'm curious about the process. What happened here? What is this? What is this fish? How did you photograph it? Did you go to the market?
Yeah, so here I was like just trying to get out of my comfort zone, as I was saying, and then I was experimenting with plant medicine, and then I was like, one day I was like in a state of consciousness, like what would happen if I just put the fish on the scanner? Because no medium was satisfying me, and I wanted just to see the details, the deep details of myself, I want to understand what is this.
The actual fish?
On the scanner.
On the scanner.
So I put the fish on the scanner, and I threw colors and salt and stuff.
Was it fresh from the? Was it?
Yeah,
fresh from
I was planning to eat it. Like I was planning to photograph it and eat it. So I did the photography. I'm not happy. I mean, I need lightings, the studio, and I don't really like my camera now, and I don't have money to buy a new camera. So I was like, what if I put it on the scanner? So I put the scanner. I put some pigments and stuff around it, and I was like, whoa, this is trippy. And then I started experimenting with that more and more and more, and I did this series. I called it I Stopped, I Saw, which I ate every single fish I photographed, except the last one, because it resembled my dead grandma, so I couldn't eat that.
Okay, Khaled.
Yeah, this one, Journey. That was the last one. That was the last one of this series. I had a filmmaker coming from US to shoot with me this process. And my grandma was dying. She was doing bad. And I was like, I can't do that, man, now. And while he's there with me, she passed away. And he's like, can we just go buy a fish and let's try? I was like, all right, let's try. And then we go to the market. He shot a movie. You can see it later on my YouTube channel or website. Yeah, we go buy the fish, and then I did this work, and I couldn't eat it. And that was it.
Can I say that part of me sees elements of some of your work that we are sitting, in the midst of, in some of these works. So I know that this is organic life form, but at the same time, it gives me the impression that this is an endless space. Speaking of which space, that here. This is 2018. You've been in Istanbul for 5 or 6 years. Now you're photographing the city. You're experimenting with it. Where is this neighborhood, and what did you do to achieve this result here?
This is how I used to see my balcony sometimes. and I used to see that scene, so I thought like I want to actually make them. This series called Psyche Istanbul. It's the psychedelic side of Istanbul and how the clouds are warping and sometimes buildings moves and sometimes they talk, and it's definitely this is the start, I say, of a journey. Like I stopped by, so it was like an inner journey, and Psyche Istanbul, I could see the relationship maybe between this and there. It was like the takeoff probably of my thought process to go like beyond where I am.
And similar to the previous picture, I see here the endless space, the skies, the clouds, the elements of some of the paintings we see from 2023 and 2024 sort of starting to form in this series and the coming series. This piece is called Following Each Other. Again, the sky is intriguing you here. Tell us about this work, please.
Yeah, I feel like it's a family of three, like heading somewhere, and it's very peaceful, and it smells nice. Also, I'm always curious about smells, because like your smelling cortex is the thing that really sticks in your mind. Like when I look at pictures at Jupiter or other places, I was like, I wonder how does it smell there? Like, which is like, it's hard to know, I think, it's impossible to know, but how these places smell and how this environment smell. And it feels like a very nice aroma here with like this family moving together. And the sky here is, of course, is for me, it's like darkness to light to different fine.
Khaled, this is a series that I'm quite familiar with. You titled this piece, Getting Out of My Comfort Zone. It reminds me of what is referred to as an ink blot test, the Rorschach, is that what they call it? Where there's a test where people take a form and then they flip it, and it's a psychological test. So does this in any way tie into your sort of deep dive into your mind, or is this just
No, I never heard about it, but back then I was dating a psychotherapist, clinical psychotherapist, and one day when I started sketching it, she came back and she came, like, we got together and she's like, do you know this? I was like, no. And then she opens like,
the ink blot test.
It's like, never heard about it. And this is like the earliest paintings I did, probably this first one I did. It was 2019, that's when I started painting. I painted when I was 4 years old, as we saw in the beginning. I never paint again, I experiment, and this is the first time I decided to paint again. And it's oil also, I started with oil.
So what caused you, what led you to take up the paintbrush and leave the scanner and the fish and everything aside and go into paint?
I wanted to go primitive. I was tired of tools, I was tired of technology, I was tired of all the limitation of technology and photography and the other thing. And B, I wanted to create something that I'd never seen it before, because if you do photography or mixed media, you still rely on something around you to manipulate and do. But if you paint, it's like very primitive. It's just oil and canvas and brush, and you just put it there. And that's why I decided, like, I wanna paint. And I chose oil, which my dad, he does acrylic. He never do oil, so I'm not familiar with the oil process in the house. I know the acrylic thing in the house because my mom never let my dad do oil in the house because it smells really hard. So he used to do oil in his early works. But then starting when I was born, he stopped oil and he turned to acrylic. So I just wanted to do oil because I feel like I like the idea that it has been done for like hundreds of years and it's there.
This is an artwork called Wisdom Given by Nature, and I remember when I walked into your apartment in Istanbul, I was gobsmacked. I was really just, it was an arresting artwork to look at, and I can't emphasize to the audience how layered these works are. These are not, I mean, the screen really just flattens them out, but you feel that there is multiple layers of oil behind each other, and in a few minutes we'll be talking about the works around us. But this process, I think, you went from instant art creation almost with the camera to weeks and maybe months long processes. Was it peaceful? Was it frustrating for you as a process?
Not at all. I mean, when I started this work, which also you have it, Barjeel has it.
This is in my house.
This is, I know, you remember that. Yeah. Okay, cool. This was during COVID, and it was my best days ever. I mean, because I was like just in my studio.
COVID was your best days?
My best days. Okay. Like I could finally hear the birds, I could finally have the silence of the city, and I could finally be with myself without any distraction and feel normal. You know, because all my friends, they look at me as a weird, because sometimes a week I don't leave the house. Yeah. I just walk my dog.
So now they all don't leave the house, so everyone.
Yeah, so we're all same. Like we're all same, and I master it. You know, like I'm okay with staying in the house. So I was having really good time with that. So it was never frustrating. And as you say, the texture here is like every detail of this painting is actually, you can see it popping out of the canvas, and if you touch it. And also I had an idea, if one day I was like, if I want to show this, I want to have like, I want to make an announcement that even if someone's like blind, yeah, they're allowed to touch, because I feel like if you can't see and if you touch it, you can still feel something, because every detail of it is like popping out of the canvas.
Okay. Yeah. So moving to this next work, and they're all from the Unfolded Realities series, and this one is titled Slow Down.
Yeah.
This is not a Rorschach. It kind of has that feeling, but it's not a reflective piece like the first two that we saw. These forms, what are these?
I don't know, you know, I have no idea. They just like come, and it's just like, I just see them. Of course,
you see them in the back of your mind when you close your eyes, or they just come up when you apply the process?
Sometimes I see them, sometimes, I mean, but not like this, but just like, you know, like my thoughts get visual, like whatever I'm thinking about, it gets visual, and sometimes it's like you're scared, sometimes it's like you're laughing, sometimes you're just like, it's moving, you know. And with this one in particular, it's like similar. I feel there is a kind of connection, because here the circle is warping, and the whole sky is warping, and the texture here is warping. So at this point I stopped seeing things. I thought here's different.
So this is 2022, and we're looking at works from 2023 and 2024 around us. We can clearly see the sort of the line of progression from the last 3 years, and I think this is a good segue for us to talk about the works around us. So in 2023, you know, you come to visit the UAE, and this is your second visit to the UAE.
Yes.
And you know, you get approached by this wonderful gallery about you know, potentially holding an exhibition, and and your work, I was kind of surprised, because having been to your home so many times, your home is about to explode from the number of canvases in it. There are canvases everywhere. There are canvases under the bed, in the closet, everywhere.
Thanks to COVID also, it's like 2 years not leaving and just producing.
But what you did when Ayyam Gallery approached you is that you, rather than bringing some of the works that you had in, you know, at home, you embarked on a journey to create a completely new set of artworks. Why did you do that? Why didn't you just say, I want to send Ayyam this series, the reflected realities or unfolded realities series? Why did you create new works?
Well, the story with Ayyam goes back like 15 years ago when they first started. 15 years ago, and we've been in touch back and forth, and I was always a big fan of what they do, and they always appreciated what I do, and it was just a matter of time to be together, let's put it this way. And stars aligned, and also coming to Dubai first time, also meeting you in your hometown for the first time, because you always come to Istanbul. I never been in your country, and then one day I come here and I see you here. So the stars aligned just to be here, for me to be here. And when I met them, yes, I had this body of work, and I only had two works, which they are out there. When the Heart is Open, I had When the Heart is Open was like, I just started When the Heart is Open, and another one, I'm not sure if we're showing it. And I show Maya, the director of the gallery, I show the works. I show her everything.
Yeah.
I show her everything, and then I show her these two works, and she's like, we want to do this one.
Okay.
I was like, sure. I mean, I would love to, because that's how I feel already. That's what I'm doing now.
You want to go forward, basically.
Yeah, I want to go forward. So it was a great push for me, like, to just proceed in my initial plan. And yeah, I worked on that, and here we are now.
But Khaled, all these works take a long time to create.
Yeah.
I remember I was here yesterday when there was the vernissage, and you mentioned that some of the works take you 6 months.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the process? So any one of these artworks, so what do? You apply, is this just one layer? This is oil. So is this a layer? Is this 2 layers? What are we looking at?
We're looking at an oil painting, only oil, there's nothing else. Even the base is oil, not even acrylic. We're looking on, I don't know how many layers, but definitely more than 2 or 3 or 5. I work on not only one painting, I work on everything together in my studio, so everything is running in the same time, because as you say, the drying process is very slow, and I maneuver with it. I exist with the time, with the pace of it. So while I'm working on this, I put that, I bring this, I bring that.
So in your home, you have basically 4 or 5 canvases
all the
set
walls,
up,
everything
easels,
on the wall,
everywhere, and then you
wall.
paint one, and then you move, and then you let it dry.
And I have another studio also somewhere else, which I did the bigger one. Yeah, constantly working, sunrise to sunset.
And Khaled, it must smell strongly of paint.
That's why, yeah, it's hard to be with me. That I understand. I mean, if someone break up with me for that, I understand. It's hard to be with
because
me.
Because it's a pungent smell. It's like
But Pablo, my dog, accepts that.
Okay.
He loves it.
Okay.
I have a pug. He's 12 years old pug, and he already got used to the smell and all of that.
So, but before I take a question or two from the audience, Khaled, again, I want to talk about the process of this. So you apply a layer of paint, you let it dry, you come back once it's sort of taken its time to absorb the paint, and then you decide to apply another layer. How do you think of the colors? And ultimately, what are we looking at? Where I see some clouds here, maybe clouds, but then these blots, these circles. How do you achieve these? Because in my 22 years of looking at art, I've never seen these before. So please explain this to me.
Well, probably never seen that before, because I don't know how I did that also. It was a pure experimental, and I think when I think about art, I think that's what art is when you just are curious about things inside of you, and you just experiment, and then you come with your own thing. And I'm not saying it should be beautiful or not, I mean, it's just like self-satisfaction. And this here and all this series is just like playing, like existing between chaos and order. And the clouds for me are the order, are the formation, that everything started as a cloud. I mean, after the Big Bang, after 13.8 billion years ago, when the first star, when the atoms split, get together and they made the first star, they made the first cloud. And somewhere in the universe, I don't see why not. We can see also interstellar in a cloud, in our earthly cloud scene. I mean, so that's for me the order, and the chaos is what here is happening. So when I start my work, I build my clouds one by one, right? I paint them with the brush, obviously. And then after I wait for it to dry, and after that I come with a very thin layer with oil, linseed oil cold, or with Damar varnish, whatever the cocktail of oil I put, and then I put the very thin layer on it. And after I do that, and when I do that, it should be done in one day, in one session, because I don't want it to dry, because I will come back. We have 5 minutes left. Wow.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah, because I want to come back to it. So after I paint that layer, I put it on the floor, and I put solvents on it. So what I'm basically doing now, I'm erasing what I painted, and it becomes like you know, like in Buddhism, when they have this mandala they do in Tibet, they work with sand, they finish and then they erase it.
Yeah.
It's to present the chaos and the order. So it feels like very fulfilling. And then I erase it. And after that, I let it wait a month. It should be wait a month or two, because this is a very thin layer, so it needs to wait a month before I touch it again.
Okay.
And then I repeat and I repeat and I repeat. So some works took like 1.5 to 2 years, some works take, on average it needs like 6 to 8 months for the work to finish.
Okay. So I want to take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So does anybody have any question for Khaled?
I can use your mic. She can.
Anybody?
If not, no.
Everybody's shy.
Khaled, very well done and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's been really interesting hearing about the inspiration to keep the series this over here. I was wondering, are you done with it? And do you already have an inspiration for the next series that you're already working on?
Yeah, I'm constantly, like, I feel like I need two lifetimes to finish what's in my head. I mean, yeah, I'm always charged. I'm always charged with love, first of all. I'm always charged with, like, just being here and having this experience is like, I need time to process that. I need time to process all the love and caring from you, from the gallery, from everyone around me, and this is inspiring, definitely, yeah. And I'm looking forward to see how it will impact whatever in my mind. I have thoughts about what I want to do, but I'm not a thought person. I always change my thoughts and I always play around it. So what I will end up, I don't know, but yeah, I'm excited to have the second chapter.
We can take 1 more question if Maya, if you allow us. Thank you, Maya.
There's a gentleman in the back who wants to.
I just want to thank Ayyam Gallery for this really interesting talk. Khaled, you mentioned, of course, in Sultan that you work with photography and painting. I'm curious if you've experimented with other mediums.
Yeah, when I was like a kid, I was making sculptures, wood sculptures, like tiny wood sculptures. When they cut the trees every season, we end up with a very soft, I forgot what kind of a tree, but the wood was very soft. So I was sculpturing it and making different sculptures, but I never took it to that seriously. I mean, so yeah, one day I would love to experiment. I think I would, like, my curiosity will take me anywhere it takes me. Like, I'm open to try any medium. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say something. There's someone.
So this would be the last question, then, Khaled.
Yeah, and then I want to
then
chat on something.
Thank you, Khaled, for the excellent talk. I just wanted to inquire about something. I see in your art there's some sort of influence of fractal art on your painting. Is there any kind of influence on your thoughts to produce these paintings from fractal art?
Not necessarily. It may be aligned with it, but my initial plan, no, I didn't have that in the mind in the first place. Yeah, but there are details of it. Yeah, you can see it like it's a living thing, or like it's like. Sometimes it can look at geometry. Sometimes when I look at some areas of it, it looks like it has some geometrical shapes. Especially that work. Also, I did the defined circle in that. Yeah.
إذا ممكن تعطيني المايك. Maybe just going back to the first gentleman's question, is the series finished? When I was here yesterday, Khaled and Maya were talking about how Khaled had sent Maya a file with images, and then when Maya received the artworks, they were not exactly the same works. So what happened in the few weeks between you sending the
very
images?
Good point. I mean, she came to the studio and she's like, "Oh, I love this. Yeah, let's
this
show
blue
that.
one. I love the blue one.
I love the blue one." And then I send the works, and she texts me, she's like, "Did you send the 2 meter blue one?" And I was reading the text like, "How did you see it?" I mean, and I was like,
"The orange one is the blue."
I was like, "This is the one. It's orange now. It's different. It's a different painting." I was like, "Yeah, it's different painting." I changed my mind. And luckily she loves it, right? You like it, yeah. So it's keep changing. It's keep changing until I'm satisfied. Before you take, I'm sorry. Yeah. Before we close. Before we close, I'm very happy that I'm having this with you. You are like a dear friend, and we know each other for years. Of course, we have a friendship, but you have a role, I think, that is similar to an artist. Like you, with your passion to collect art, is something, but the fact that you use your resources to regenerate that feeling and that passion and to show it to the outside world is very similar to the process of what artists do in general, how we work and how we want to express ourselves. And when we express ourselves, we find people to connect with. And I love that we have this 12 years friendship. And I love that you're part of every work, and I don't see anyone better than you. I'm very lucky to have you, because as you said, you've been following this like since the beginning, one by one, so I'm very happy to have this together.
Thank you, Khaled. You make it easy. You know,
Yeah.
artists are, you know, they're very interesting creatures. Sometimes,
yeah.
sometimes you sort of get along, and sometimes it's more challenging to understand their work. But I think your work and the different material you use, the different mediums, the you know, photography, going to experimental art, going to painting. It's been an exciting journey, and I'm so grateful to you for allowing me to share this session with you. And thanks to Ayyam, thanks to Juhayna, and to Eid, and to Maya, and to Hisham, and to Khaled, of course, and Fadi, and everybody. I'm sure I forgot many people here. So thank you all for hosting us, and for bringing everybody together. And thank you all for attending, and thank you, Khaled.
Thank you very much.